Payback Inc. is an organization that assures offenders will be held accountable for their actions through restorative justice programs, community service, and locating job sites. Joining us is Board President Albert Gallardo and Board Secretary Nancy Hirsch from Payback. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Exactly.
Now, what I think is interesting is that you both had prior work that kind of guided you in the direction of doing what you do with Payback right now. So talk about how what you did before led you to join forces with Payback.
I was a juvenile officer, a deputy juvenile officer for St. Louis County for family court for my entire career, pretty much. Retired about 4 years ago, but I saw the birth, if you will, of the Payback program in 1983 when Junior League partnered with the court, with the judiciary, to develop this restitution or restorative justice and restitution program. And I always thought, as a deputy juvenile officer, it was one of the most wonderful programs we had because youth had the benefit of, first of all, paying back their victims, being held accountable. Their victims received some remuneration then for their losses. And the community job sites where the youth would work would also benefit by the workforce, if you will. The youth also benefited by the contact with the staff there, and so it was almost like a mentoring kind of relationship. So these kids learned a lot too about work ethic and being in a job site. So there was just a lot of wins to that. So when I retired 4 years ago, I was invited to be on the board of directors of Payback.
Perfect. Now let's hear how your prior work guided you to work with Payback as well.
Thanks, Raynah. I'm a transplant from New York. I've been here a couple of years, 6 years anyway. So in one of my parts of my career, I worked on alternatives to incarceration for a mayor in New York. And one of the things that struck me then was the program.
He wasn't the one who was going to be incarcerated, right?
No. Alternatives to
Just making sure.
We funded.
Just making sure.
Yeah, it was later mayors. But anyway, so what really struck me was that when we were funding alternatives to incarceration, the community was really interested in moving kids and adults away from being locked up. Rikers Island I did some studies on Rikers Island, really crowded, unsafe, even today when you read about in the paper about stuff like that. To me, it seems like there's a better path. So when I was here after moving to St. Louis and seeing some of the opportunities here, I was looking for a board position, and a gentleman there, I applied for a position on the board and found out that the mission is exactly something that I thought, at least in my experience and working from a policy point of view, makes sense for any town, any city, that instead of putting kids in either in juvenile justice and putting them in a juvenile stir or adults, the perfect thing to do is to show them that there's a different path and hopefully move them in a better direction.
All right. So tell me then, exactly what does Payback do? What happens when you get a child out of the juvenile system and they're sent to Payback? What happens from there?
The youth is assigned, the different courts that manage their own aspect of the Payback program will screen the youth and determine their appropriateness for working in the Payback program. They will place them in the job sites. The job sites, as I said, are community job sites. They can be nursing homes, they can be food pantries, fire stations, any nonprofit, as long as it's a nonprofit community agency, in order to do the community service whereby they are going to earn the hourly rate to pay back, and the hourly rate being the minimum wage, to pay back their victim of the offense. And then, of course, the payments are things like for out-of-pocket expenses, insurance deductibles, those types of things. And then the courts are, when the youth completes the community service for the restitution, the courts notify us and request a check. The check goes to the courts, and the courts pay the victim.
We have to take a quick break, but when we come back from that break, let's talk about how this is really impacting the community and how juveniles are being affected by being able to be a part of this system once they get caught up in the whole justice system. So let's take a break and we'll come back and have more with Payback right after this.